I stared at the text message on my phone. I read it 3 times because I thought maybe I didn't understand it right the first time. My brother Gideon had just told me, not asked me, just told me, that he had sold my building. My building downtown. The one I had bought 6 years ago when no one thought that part of the city was very nice. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me this. If it were you sitting at that table, what would you have done? Also, where are you watching this from, and what time of day is it? I want to know how far this story goes. The text came at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was in a meeting with the city planning group about new rules for buildings. My phone was on silent, but it lit up during a break in the meeting, and I glanced down. The text said, "Sold your worthless building for $200,000. The family needs the money more than you." It wasn't a question. He didn't ask for permission. He just told me like it was already done, like he had the right to sell my building. I put my phone face down on the table and tried to focus on the maps in the meeting. But my mind wouldn't stop thinking about the text. That worthless building Gideon talked about was not worthless at all. It was actually worth $8.5 million. It had 3 successful shops on the first floor, offices on floors 2, 3, and 4, and fancy apartments on the top 2 floors. Every month, it made $142,000 from rent. I had worked hard for years to make it profitable. But Gideon wouldn't know that. And my family wouldn't know either. To them, I was still Eleanor, the 29-year-old who spent her 20s working for other people, managing their buildings. I hadn't gone to law school like Gideon. I didn't marry a rich husband like my sister Serafina. I lived in a small apartment instead of a big house with a yard. They had no idea that I owned 17 buildings across the city. They didn't know my apartment was actually a penthouse in a building I owned mortgage-free. They didn't know I had been quietly building wealth for years. My family only cared about showing off. Gideon had a fancy law degree. Serafina married a tech boss. They drove nice cars, had big houses, and went to country clubs. My success was quiet and smart, investing in buildings, buying in neighborhoods before they got popular, growing my money slowly but surely. No one clapped for that. No one made an announcement. It was invisible to them. The meeting ended at 4:15 p.m. I looked at my phone again. Gideon had sent 3 more texts. Already deposited the check. Don't be mad. You know the family business needs money. You should thank me for getting $200K for that dump. The family business he meant was Gideon Law Firm. Dad had given him money to start it 18 months ago. The firm wasn't doing well because Gideon spent more on fancy furniture and a big office than on clients. I didn't reply to the texts. I called my lawyer. Eleanor. Tom answered on the second ring. What's wrong? My brother just sold one of my buildings without asking me. The Morrison building downtown. There was a pause. Wait, $8 million building? Your brother sold it? Yes. He says he got $200,000 for it. That's fraud. Grand theft. Maybe even more crimes depending on how he did it. This is serious. We need to. I know, Tom. I'm not asking what to do. I'm telling you to start the process. Contact the buyer, file the right paperwork, and report the sale. I want this done properly. Understood. I'll need the police and probably the district attorney, given how much money this is. Do what you need to do, I said and hung up. I drove to my parents' house. It was Tuesday, family dinner night. Every week we had dinner together. Mom made her pot roast, and we all pretended we were a happy family. I arrived at 6:30 p.m., right on time. Gideon BMW was in the driveway, parked crookedly so it took up space for 2 cars. Serafina's husband's Tesla was there too, sparkling clean. Inside, the smell of roasting meat filled the house. Mom wore her apron that said Queen of the Kitchen in flowery letters. Dad was in his recliner watching the financial news, even though he didn't really understand it. Eleanor. Mom called. You're here. Gideon just told us the most wonderful news. Did he? I said, setting my purse down. About selling that old building of mine? For $200,000? Can you believe it for that old thing? Mom said, wiping her hands. Gideon said, You've been trying to sell it for years. Isn't it wonderful a buyer finally found it? I hadn't been trying to sell it. I never said I wanted to sell it. Where is Gideon? I asked. In the dining room with your father and Serafina, Mom said. They're celebrating. I walked into the dining room. Gideon sat at the head of the table, Dad's usual seat, with a glass of what looked like expensive scotch. Serafina and her husband sat across from each other with glasses too. There she is, Gideon said, standing up and grinning. I was just telling everyone about the sale. No need to thank me. That's what family does, right? Look out for each other. When I heard Johnson Properties was looking for something in that area, I thought of your building. I figured I'd help you out. Serafina leaned forward. That's really nice of you, Gideon. That building has been doing nothing for years. Hasn't it? Well, yeah, I said softly. Serafina glanced at Gideon. I mean, you were managing it, but you didn't own it, right? Right. Callum, Serafina's husband, tried to help. Actually, I thought Eleanor mentioned she. Gideon interrupted. The important thing is I got you a great deal. Johnson Properties wanted to pay $150,000, but I got $200,000. You're welcome. That's my Gideon, Dad said, walking in with his own glass. Always looking out for his little sister. That's the lawyer in him. Smart negotiator. $200,000. Mom repeated. Eleanor, sweetie, what are you going to do with all that money? Maybe finally buy a real house with a yard. Gideon leaned back. Actually, I already deposited the check. The room went very quiet. You what? Serafina asked. I deposited it into the firm's account, Gideon said. Eleanor knows we need capital. Once we're profitable, I'll pay her back with interest. Dad nodded. Smart thinking. Keep it in the family. Gideon, Mom said slowly, you should have asked Eleanor first. Why? The money helps the family business. Eleanor's part of the family. It all works out, Gideon said. He looked at me. You understand, right? It's an investment. In 6 months or a year, the firm will be booming. You'll get double your money back. I looked at my brother carefully. At 34, Gideon had the kind of confidence that came from never really failing at anything. Dad had paid for college, law school, and given him $400,000 to start the firm. Every mistake Gideon made was cushioned by family money. Gideon, I said calmly, how exactly did you sell my building? I told you Johnson Properties, he said. No. How did you actually do the sale? The paperwork? The deed transfer? Gideon waved his hand. Details. I'm a lawyer. I know how to do real estate transactions. So, you forged my signature? I asked. The room went very quiet. I didn't forge anything, Gideon said, but his voice sounded less sure. I had power of attorney. No, you don't. Dad gave you power of attorney for family properties years ago, I said. I turned to Dad. Did you? Dad looked uncomfortable. Well, yes, but that was for my properties, not the building that is mine, I said. The one in my name with my tenants, my taxes. Gideon laughed, but it sounded forced. Come on, Eleanor. Don't be dramatic. You don't own that building. You just manage it. There's a difference. I took a deep breath. Gideon, you may think this is simple, but this is my building, my money, my tenants. You sold it without asking. That is not just wrong. That is illegal. He looked around the room. Dad avoided my eyes. Mom looked shocked. Serafina's face was red. Callum sat quietly, unsure what to say. I realized then that my family didn't see me as the same kind of successful person they were. To them, I was always Eleanor, the younger sister who didn't go to law school, who didn't marry rich, who lived in a small apartment. They didn't understand the quiet way I had built my wealth. Gideon thought he could just take what he wanted because I wasn't visible enough. But I knew better. I would not let him get away with this. I picked up my phone and called Tom again. Start the process. Police, DA, everything. I want my building back. And I want Gideon to understand that no one can just take what is mine. Tom's voice was steady. I'm on it. This is going to be a big case, Eleanor. But you're ready. You know what to do. I felt a little better. I was still calm. I had a plan. I would handle this by the book, and I would make sure Gideon couldn't pretend this was okay. Family dinner continued, but I sat quietly. Gideon smiled at everyone, trying to act proud. Serafina whispered to Callum. Mom tried to smile and keep the peace. Dad nodded like it was all fine. But I knew the truth. This was not fine, and I would not let it go. I bought it in April 2019 for $2.3 million. I paid for it all in cash. I didn't need a loan. No bank was involved. No one could take it from me if I didn't pay them back. I said calmly, Do you want to see the papers that show I own it? Serafina gasped so loudly that it startled me. $2 million? Eleanor, where would you get that much money? That's impossible. Nobody can just have that kind of money lying around. Gideon, my brother, shook his head and laughed nervously. You were making what? $45,000 a year as a property manager. I made $45,000 working for someone else. Then I started working for myself. And I'm not even close to owning properties like you say you do. Mom sat down heavily in her chair. Eleanor, sweetie, are you feeling okay? Maybe we should. I didn't let her finish. I wanted everyone to understand the truth. I own 17 properties in this city, I said. 17. That's a lot of buildings. The Morrison building downtown, the one Gideon just sold without asking me, is worth $8.5 million, according to the last official check. Every month, it brings in $142,000 just from rent. I haven't had a normal job in 4 years, because I don't need one. My properties make enough money for me to live comfortably. The room went completely silent. No one said a word. The only sound was the ticking of the clock on the wall. Then Gideon laughed again, nervously this time. That's ridiculous, he said. If you really owned all that property, we would know about it. You drive a Toyota. You live in a tiny apartment. I took a deep breath. It's a 2,400 square foot penthouse that I own. No mortgage, no rent. I live there because I want to. Not because I need a place someone else owns. Gideon, do you understand that? Dad leaned forward slowly and said carefully, if this is some kind of joke, Eleanor. I didn't let him finish. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was Tom, my lawyer. Excuse me, I said, and I walked into the kitchen to answer it. Tom, Eleanor, we have a problem. Or, well, your brother has a very big problem, Tom said. The sale went through a title company called Quick Close Solutions. They usually handle, let's say, risky transactions. Sometimes they don't check ownership carefully. How risky? I asked. Tom sighed. The kind of risk where people could sell property that isn't theirs. But in this case, they did check. Your brother gave them papers that looked real, a power of attorney and a copy of the deed. But he almost certainly faked them. The title company is helping us now. They're really upset. This could cost them their license. They said your brother's fake documents looked very real, and they couldn't have caught the forgery right away. What about the buyer? I asked. Johnson Properties is a real company. They thought they were buying from the owner's representative. Now they are threatening to sue everyone involved. The $200,000 that was deposited into your brother's law firm account this morning? He moved fast. But we might be able to freeze it. I felt my stomach drop. Can we get it back? Yes. The bank can freeze the account. I already contacted them. But there's something else. Your brother's account only had $47,000 before this deposit. He was already broke. He was desperate, I would say. I've also filed a police report. Because of the amount involved, this is a felony. Multiple felonies, fraud, forgery, and grand theft. The district attorney will probably file charges tomorrow. Dad looked at me shocked. Okay, Eleanor, this is your brother. Are you sure you want to do this? I'm sure, I said firmly. I hung up and returned to the dining room. Everyone was still frozen in uncomfortable silence. That was my lawyer, I said, sitting back down. He filed a police report. The district attorney will likely file charges tomorrow. Fraud, forgery, and grand theft. Gideon stood up abruptly. You're bluffing. The title company is cooperating. They gave copies of all the fake documents. The buyer might sue, but Eleanor, you're not serious. You can't do this to me. Serafina whispered, he's your brother. He just did something really bad. Dad's face had turned red with anger. Wait a minute. We don't show family problems in public. We deal with them privately, he said firmly. He stole $8.5 million worth of property. I said. Dad shouted. That's not stealing. It is stealing when the property isn't yours to sell. I said. Mom was crying now. Eleanor, think about the family. Think about Gideon's career. A criminal record would ruin him. Think about the shame. He should have thought about that before forging legal documents, I said. Gideon's confidence was gone. He looked pale and scared. You actually own that building? He asked. Yes, I do, I said calmly. But how? You don't have that kind of money. You can't, he said, confused and angry. At that moment, his phone rang. We all watched it. The screen showed an unknown number with a local area code. I said, answer it. Gideon picked up, shaking. Hello. I couldn't hear the person on the other end, but I watched Gideon's face go pale. His eyes were wide, and his mouth hung open. Yes, this is Gideon Chin. Who is what? Consent. The voice grew louder. The city's most valuable. No, that can't be right. It's just an old building worth $8.5 million. Gideon sat down hard. I only $200,000, he said, his voice trembling. He lowered the phone slowly. That was Johnson Properties' lawyer. They are suing me for fraud. They want their $200,000 back immediately, plus more money for damages. They say the building is worth. I finished for him. $8.5 million. Serafina's phone buzzed. She gasped. Oh my God, Gideon, you're trending on Twitter. What? He asked, terrified. She held up her phone. I could see the headline from across the table. Local attorney sells $8.5 million building without owner's consent. Callum leaned over to look. That's Johnson Properties' corporate account. They have 200,000 followers, he said. Serafina kept scrolling. Real Estate Weekly wrote about it. So did Legal Times. They're calling it the biggest property fraud case of the year. Dad stood up. This is fixable. We can hire a better lawyer. With what money? I asked. Gideon firm is $47,000 in debt, even with the stolen $200,000. You refinanced this house to give him startup money. Serafina, didn't you? And Callum co-signed his office lease. Serafina went pale. How do you know that? I make it my business to know about my investments, I said. We're not your investments. Gideon shouted. We're your family, I said. Then why did you steal from me? He cried. I didn't steal. I was trying to help. The firm just needed more time, I said. It's been failing since month 3. You only have 2 clients. Your monthly expenses are $47,000, and your monthly income is $6,000. You were never going to make it, I said firmly. Mom was sobbing openly now. Eleanor, how can you be so cruel? He's your brother. He made a mistake. He committed multiple felonies, I said quietly but firmly. My phone rang again. Tom said, the police are on their way to your brother's house. They should arrive in about an hour. Also, the Bar Association heard about this and is opening an ethics investigation. Even if he isn't criminally convicted, he'll probably lose his law license. I looked at Gideon. He had heard enough. His whole body was shaking. Eleanor, he whispered, please. I'm sorry. I'll fix it. I'll sell my car, my furniture, whatever it takes. Just don't let them arrest me. You can't fix this, Gideon. You don't have $8.5 million. You don't even have $200,000 anymore. The bank froze your account, I said. Serafina stood up. This is insane. Eleanor, you're destroying him over money. It's just money. It's not about money, I said. Then what is it about? She asked. I looked at everyone at the table. My parents, who always liked Gideon achievements more than mine. At Serafina, who compared me to Gideon all the time. At Gideon, who thought I had nothing worth stealing. It's about the fact that you all assumed I had nothing worth stealing, I said. Dad tried again. Eleanor, please be reasonable. We can work this out as a family. We don't need lawyers and police. We just need to sit down and... Fine, I said, standing up. Here's my offer. Gideon returns the $200,000 immediately. All of it. Then he pays the fair price for the building. $8.5 million. If he doesn't, the sale is void, and he faces criminal charges for fraud and theft. That's impossible. Gideon shouted. I don't have $8.5 million. Then you shouldn't have sold my building, I said. Mom pleaded. You can't send your brother to prison. I'm not sending him anywhere. His choices did that, I said. The doorbell rang. We all froze. Dad went to answer it. 2 police officers appeared in the doorway. Gideon Chin? The taller officer asked. Gideon stood slowly. Yes, sir. We have a warrant for your arrest for fraud, forgery, and grand theft. You have the right to remain silent. Mom screamed. Serafina started crying. Gideon didn't say a word. He just stood there, pale, shaking, and silent. Dad tried to talk to the police officers. He told them that this was a big mistake, just a family problem, something that could be solved without involving the police at all. He spoke quickly and nervously, waving his hands, trying to explain. He said, It's all a misunderstanding. He didn't mean any harm. Please, there's no need for this to become a big thing. But the police didn't listen. They had their orders, and nothing Dad said could change that. Gideon just stood there as the officers put handcuffs on him. His face was calm, almost empty, but his eyes met mine. I could see something like sadness and regret there. He said softly, I'm your brother. I know, I replied. That's what makes this so disappointing. After they led Gideon out of the house, everything in our home felt like it exploded into chaos. Mom fell into a chair, sobbing loudly, her body shaking as she cried about her son. Her face was red, her hair messy, and she didn't stop. Dad immediately started making phone calls, trying to find a good criminal lawyer who could help Gideon get out on bail. His voice was loud and hurried, almost panicked. Serafina, my sister, cried and yelled at me at the same time. She was angry that I didn't seem upset enough about Gideon, that I didn't jump to protect him. How can you just sit there? She asked, her voice breaking. He's your brother. Aren't you supposed to help him? Then Callum, Serafina's husband, quietly pulled me into the kitchen. He looked worried, and I could see his hands shaking a little. He said, "Eleanor, I know this is complicated, but I need to ask you something. Serafina and I co-signed Gideon's office lease. If his firm goes under, we'll be responsible for paying the rent." "Yes," I said. "That's $8,000 every month for 3 years," he said, looking pale. "I know," I said again. I could see his shoulders slump. He ran his hand through his hair. "We can't afford that. Not with our mortgage and the kids' school expenses." He paused and looked at me carefully. "Wait, you really own 17 properties?" "Yes," I said quietly. "You've been listening to us talk about money problems for years, and you never said anything?" he asked, shocked. "Would you have believed me if I had?" I asked gently. He didn't answer for a moment. Then he said quietly, "Probably not." He looked at me with hesitation. "Is there anything you can do about the lease?" I raised an eyebrow. "The building Gideon rented? Who do you think owns it?" Callum's eyes went wide. "No, you can't." "Yes," I said. "I can terminate his lease because of the criminal charges. That means you and Serafina won't be responsible for the rent." Callum's jaw dropped. "Why would you do that after what Gideon did?" "Because you didn't steal from me," I said. "And because Serafina is going to have enough problems being married to an ex-con. She doesn't need financial ruin on top of that." Callum's expression changed. He looked at me with something like respect. "You're not what I expected," he said. "No one ever expects the quiet one to have power," I said calmly. Later that night, after I had left my parents' house and returned to my penthouse apartment, Tom, my lawyer, called me. His voice was low but urgent. "Gideon made bail," he said. "It was $100,000. I leaned back in my chair. "Your father refinanced his house again?" I asked, already guessing the answer. "That house must be mortgaged 3 times over by now," I muttered. "Close," Tom said. "I'm sending you the preliminary damage assessment. Johnson Properties is demanding the full $8.5 million value plus damages. The title company is in serious trouble. Their insurance won't cover fraud, so they are personally liable." And the Bar Association moved fast. Gideon's law license is suspended while they investigate. His firm is effectively dead. His 2 clients have already hired new lawyers. The office is closed. I let out a long sigh. "And let me guess, Dad probably paid for the fancy glamorous things while Gideon ignored the boring bills?" "Exactly," Tom said. "He owes his IT company $23,000, his janitorial service $8,000, and his printing company $34,000. All the invisible work that keeps an office running. That sounds like Gideon." "One more thing," Tom said. The story hit national news. The Wall Street Journal picked it up. "Silicon Valley-style fraud comes to the Midwest real estate market. You were mentioned as the victim, though they didn't use your name." "Great," I muttered. "Gideon is ruined. His career is over. His reputation is gone. He'll likely face prison time. Are you okay with that?" Tom asked. I looked out my penthouse windows at the city lights, at the skyline that included 4 buildings I owned, at the life I had built quietly, methodically, without anyone's help. "I'm not happy about it," I said. "But yes, I'm okay with it. Gideon didn't just steal money, Tom. He stole because he thought I was worth nothing, that I had nothing valuable, that I didn't matter. And now everyone knows better." The next morning, my phone started ringing at exactly 6:47 a.m. I didn't answer. I poured coffee instead, the smell filling my apartment. By the time I finished my first cup, I had 8 voicemails and 14 text messages. They were all from family members I hadn't heard from in years, cousins, aunts, uncles, all suddenly very interested in how I was doing. They all carefully danced around the real question they wanted to ask. Was I really worth $8.5 million? The only message I responded to was from Serafina. "I'm sorry for everything," she wrote. "For assuming, for judging, for not defending you when I should have. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I wanted you to know." I typed back, "Thank you. That means something." 3 weeks later, Gideon pleaded guilty to fraud and forgery. The district attorney offered a deal. 5 years of probation, full restitution to Johnson Properties, and permanent disbarment. The alternative was a trial and likely prison time. Gideon took the deal. But Gideon couldn't pay. Dad couldn't pay. The house was already over-mortgaged. Serafina and Callum had nothing. Johnson Properties was demanding immediate payment, or they would push for jail time despite the plea deal. The night before the restitution hearing, Dad called me. "I'm begging you as your father. Please help him." "Help him? How?" I asked. Pay the restitution. You have the money. You could make this all go away, Dad said, his voice trembling. No, I said firmly. He's your brother. Your family. How can you be so heartless? Dad asked. He stole from me, Dad. He forged documents. He committed fraud. And he did it all because he thought I was nobody. Because you all thought I was nobody. We never. You did. Every family dinner, every holiday, every gathering. Gideon, the successful lawyer, Serafina, the perfect wife, and Eleanor, the poor little one with her small job and small apartment going nowhere. We never. Dad was silent. I worked for this, Dad. Every building, every investment, every dollar. I did it alone because none of you believed I could. And the first moment Gideon thought he could profit from my work, he stole it without hesitation, without asking. Because in his mind, I was too insignificant to matter. If I pay the restitution, he learns nothing. I hung up. At the hearing, the judge ordered Gideon to pay $8.5 million in restitution to Johnson Properties at a rate of $2,500 per month. At that rate, it would take him 284 years to pay it off. He had also lost his law license permanently, his office, his car, and his reputation. He was 34 years old and starting over with a felony record and no prospects. 6 months after his conviction, Gideon got a job at a property management company. Entry level. $42,000 a year. Managing buildings for someone else. Mom called me when she found out. Are you happy now? She asked. Is this what you wanted? Your brother is working a job he's overqualified for, barely making enough to survive. I worked that exact job for years, I reminded her. You all thought it was beneath notice, she said. How? I asked. She didn't answer. A year after the conviction, Serafina invited me to lunch. We met at a small cafe downtown, 2 blocks from a building I owned. Gideon is doing okay, she said. He's working hard. He's humble now. He's actually pretty good at property management. Good, I said. He asks about you sometimes. I wonder if you'll ever forgive him. I don't know, I said. Serafina stirred her coffee. You know what's funny? I always thought you were the one who needed help, needed guidance, needed us to show you how to be successful. She looked at me. Turns out you were the only one who figured it out. I had good motivation, I said. I wanted to prove I was worth something. You proved it, she said. Did I? Or did Gideon just prove you all wrong? She smiled sadly. Both, maybe. We talked for another hour about her kids, her marriage, her life. She never once asked about my properties or my money, just about me. It was the best conversation we had ever had. 2 years after the conviction, I was having breakfast in my penthouse when my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, Eleanor, said Gideon. I almost hung up. Almost. What do you want? I asked. I just wanted to tell you something, he said. I'm leading a training session next week for new property managers. How to spot investment opportunities, how to build a portfolio. And I realized I learned all of it from you. From me? I asked. Yes, he said. When we were kids, you used to talk about buildings and neighborhoods and property values. I thought it was boring. Turns out you were brilliant, and I was too arrogant to see it. I didn't say anything. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Gideon continued. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I see it now. What you built, who you are. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry I had to lose everything to learn what you tried to teach me for free. That's all I wanted to say. Take care of yourself, Eleanor. He hung up. I sat there for a long time looking out at the city, at the buildings I owned, at the life I had built from nothing but hard work and smart choices. My family had thought I was poor because I didn't show off my wealth. They thought I was insignificant because I didn't demand attention. They thought they could steal from me because I seemed too weak to fight back. They had been wrong about all of it. And now finally they knew.